Now we get to Briary. Brian?
Planning Board meeting for the Village of Dobbs Ferry on March 1, 2018. This evening, we have 6 items on our agenda. The first item on our, I would first take a motion to open the meeting.
Second.
Second. All in favor? Thank you. The first item on our agenda is 35 Riverside Place, a public hearing for site plan review for proposed conversion from one-family to two-family residence. I would take a motion to open the public hearing.
Second.
Is there a second? All in favor? Thank you.
Good evening, Chairman and members of the Planning Board. 35, we were here a month ago. We introduced this project to you. You called for a public hearing, which we've opened tonight. The project is simple as you guys saw, and I think instead of going through what we talked about last time, just to repeat it, I think what we probably could do is go to what the issues are that were of greatest concern, which I think were the parking. I don't know if there was actually anything else that was really an issue. I think the main thing was parking.
No, I think parking, and depending on how the parking is dealt with, what kind of landscaping
Sure.
can remain.
Right. So what we did, we actually did 2 different things. First thing we did is we kind of made people get very nervous about why we were always down there taking pictures. We went down there a lot to check different times of day, to see what the real parking situation is. Saturday night at 8 o'clock, when 2 people were having a party, there were a lot of cars, there were still spaces at that point. In the evenings, there were spaces, and definitely during the day, it's actually a lot of spaces. So I don't think we're at risk of filling spaces up that are on the public street. We also analyzed all of the different houses and confirmed that almost every house has at least 2, if not multiple parking spaces. Some of the houses actually have 6, which I'm assuming there are 3 families or something like that. So while there's a lot of space for parking on the street, well, a lot of cars are parking on the street, it's not as though there are a lot of other houses that don't have parking that's allocated to them. The only property that we really saw that didn't have parking is the one in the corner, which is actually fronting on Palisade Street. But it all seems like it's fairly manageable from that standpoint. The second thing we did is we looked at 3 different approaches to handling the parking in terms of how many spaces we would have. The one that we submitted to you last time was the one that showed 3 parking spaces with 6 feet to 7 foot on each side, which would give us room for landscaping to augment what's there now. There's a nice tree right here. There's heavy screening along this side. We'd like to keep that. That said, what we did is we also looked at the idea if we did 2 very deep spaces, could we get it to where the 2 cars would park and not go past the curb? We know that those double spaces can't count as permitted parking, but I think that's one of the suggestions that we made is, would that work? So if these people, if there wasn't parking out here, there's 4 cars parking in there, and we managed to make that work. I'm also showing what it would be like if we had 4 parking spaces. We held to this side, that would probably have an adverse impact on that landing. We may be able to save the street, because it's already kind of impinged upon, but my guess is that it would completely limit our ability to do any landscaping and screening. And I think while there are other houses on the street that kind of feel like their front yard is asphalt, I don't think that's the model that we want to follow. So I think there were at least 1 or 2 people who were thinking 2 spaces was best, 3 I think would work. I think 4 would be the one that we want to make sure that we're not doing. but it's really a call decision on your guys.
How much, if you do the one on the right,
The two.
the two, that's two, how much overhang would you have with a normal-sized car?
I mean, if people pulled their first car in to the stop, you could get the car completely off the street. You're not sticking out past the curb. You're probably, I mean, this is about 28 to here, plus another 6. So I think, you know, I mean, right, just sort of scale this from this point here, which is the property line, to this point, that's 20 feet. So we've got another, say, 5, 6 feet, so this is 26, I think it's actually 28 feet long there. And then we've got another 10 feet from there to the street, so we've got like 36 feet. And while we have parking spaces that are 18 feet, we certainly have cars that are closer to 14, 15 feet long, so I think you'd be able to do that.
What if you didn't, when you redid the garage into a room, didn't put the wall out flush with the end, but recessed it a couple feet, say?
Kind of to retain the historic nature of the garage. I think a couple of things. First, I think it's good to have landscaping in front of that, soften the appearance in front of the house. We would be able to do that. One of the questions that came up last time was a question about how large the rooms were in the house, and I think, you know, they're okay size, but they're not big, you know, so if we took, say, 5 feet out of this master, to be able to put a car into that, I don't know that we're getting anything good. As particularly since it's viable to get the 2 cars parked, stacked in here, and have the space for the landscaping, I think, you know, that's really a preference. And my guess is, as we saw with a lot of it, I mean, there were times when there were a lot of cars parked on the street, and we saw where the people were going, and they were going into houses that had parking available on site. So I don't think we're at a shortage, and I think I don't know that parking is as important here as sometimes in other places. I think we're well parked.
So I'm just, I don't remember, code-wise, are we allowed, are people allowed to end in their
You're
parking?
not allowed to park on the public right-of-way.
No, I know,
So
but can you stack the cars and that counts as 2 spaces?
if you have enough room on property.
Okay.
But this is not on property, it's just
It's,
a.
it's off of the road, it's inside the curb, but it's
It's
on
on the
public
right-of-way.
right-of-way. Right.
So if this, every scheme except for the 4 requires either a variance or a waiver.
Mm-hmm.
And the 4 gives you no landscaping. But Darius made a point just now as saying that he remembers, you know, open weave, semi-pervious blocks used for driveways, which if you were to go with the 3 and get a variance or a waiver for the 4th and make it an open weave block, it would look much better when there's no cars on. It would look, you would have grass coming up through the block. And then with some bushes on the side, it softens it a lot.
It would be preferable to having 4 paved. I don't think it's preferable to having grass and plants. You know, and, I mean, when you say a waiver or a variance, I think what you're referring to, you know, correct me if I'm wrong, is that the code specifically empowers the planning board to allow street parking to count as the.
No, it does not. That is,
Doesn't the
not in-
downtown.
Not in residential zones.
Yeah. I think it's only in like the downtown zones.
We looked it up last time.
Okay, I mean, there's a section that does,
There's a section for alternative parking solutions for districts with non-residential zones.
okay, I'll check it again. I'm sure you're right. But what I read was that it was applicable. I know we talked about it at least when we were doing that, that people, if they had a we didn't get the units, you know, the accessory apartments, but the idea was that the street parking would be something that would count for that if there was street parking.
It's not the way it was
I
written.
remember that.
So just to be clear, how much further would the cars have to move in your two slot, your scheme on the right, for it to be legal? What is the,
12 feet.
you'd have to move, in other words, how much house
To
would you
have,
have?
to have 18-foot long parking spaces,
Two.
you need 36 feet.
Okay,
And what we've got is about 26 feet. 10 feet,
Right, you can see where the property line mark is,
Yeah.
how far in it is.
yeah, right here.
Yeah.
And then this is the 20-foot.
so 10 feet, and you have, what, 5 feet of parking? I'm sorry, plantings?
We've got just about 6 feet of parking, of planting, from the front of the house to the curb. You know, the stop block for the parking.
So you could have some, and what is the curved element that's there? Is that a window well or something?
No, that's just, it's a.
Landscape.
It's to keep the car from accidentally rolling and getting into the house. It's a stop block.
No, the curved thing right next to the steps, I'm sorry.
Right here is a stop block.
No, but the curved thing, go to the little porch.
To the right?
Oh, this?
Yeah, that.
Yeah, that's an existing little planter.
Okay.
Are there questions about other things in the parking, or is that the only rule?
It seems like that circle, I mean, there's a lot of room to park there, but it varies a lot. You know, the number of cars in there really seems to vary a lot.
Yeah.
And it seems like there's a lot of parking, if people just parallel park along the circle even, but people nose in certain
I don't
places.
think they do that because they're not, I mean, we've seen that when there's lots of spaces along curves. I think there are two houses specifically who treat the street area in front of their house as their parking lot.
Yeah.
And everyone who parks, when their kids come home, they park facing the house, they don't park parallel.
Is that, I mean, what, with the fire department, is that,
I'm not gonna talk anything about fire departments.
I mean, what do they-
Last time I made a comment, I'm still having people walk up to me and tell me how, I don't understand.
The fire truck would just pull in head first and hit a hydrant, pull in front of the house they're fighting the fire, and just stay there. They don't need to make a circle to come.
Okay.
They'll just, when they're done fighting the fire, they'll have somebody back them out.
okay,
That's what typically happens.
so it's not really an issue.
Well, I'm sympathetic to the applicant in terms of wishing to do this, but I think we need to find a way to solve the problem of parking, either through, as the building inspector says, a waiver or
That's,
a variance.
yeah, the waiver would be by the planning board. This is not a board of trustees zone.
If it was the four, as you've shown, I mean, probably the way it would be used is people would park on the street some of the time. And when it got really crowded, they nose in, so,
I mean, I think it's good to provide the additional space. I don't think this section of grass between this and there does anything significant for the community. So the idea of having the ability that you could fit 4 cars in there, I think is just a smarter idea.
yeah, and I mean, and Mr. Manley's suggestion of having this grass block, or open weave in some of it nearest to the house, I think would make a difference, because they wouldn't park there all the time. They park on the streets sometimes, so it might be a solution.
They use them at Walden Woods.
Yeah.
They work fine and.
Do they actually have grass going through the blocks?
Yes,
That they've kept up?
yep.
It does, actually, it's the reverse problem. It doesn't really need to be kept up. You need to cut it.
Well, that's okay. That's okay. I thought you were gonna say that, yeah, but nothing ever really grows in there.
I don't think you get a lovely, Kentucky bluegrass, but, if you.
It's green.
It'll be, I mean, some of the nicest I've seen are when they actually, we've used buttermilk and beer, and you get a moss
Awesome.
that grows in it. It's actually quite attractive. It also gets completely smushed when you cut a car on it, but, it comes back.
And is the 4 wide parking solution, does that meet all the code requirements?
That would meet code requirements, but it's.
There's no
looks like
setback
a-
issues,
Looks like a
there's no-
commercial parking lot.
No, I
in front of a
understand. So
house.
really, the question is whether we want to advocate for a more aesthetically neighborhood-friendly solution
Exactly.
that doesn't meet code.
Yep, exactly, and I would, Darius can obviously correct me, good at it, if we have the ability to fit 4 parking spaces on site without a variance, and we go for a variance to reduce the number of parking spaces to 2, I don't know that the zoning board is really in a position to grant that variance. We can comply, why would they be entitled to take, to grant us relief from that if we can comply? So I think it would have to be a waiver by this board. Which is a good tool for you to use.
There is another house on the circle that's, where the front yard is just paved and it's
Yeah.
really not.
Yeah, there's actually, as you go up the street on the north side, there are 3 houses in a row where they're paving together. And you just start looking for the wrong sign.
Can you combine your options 2 and 3? You could make those 2 spaces, number 2 and 3, deeper in the event that,
You could, sure.
and then number 1 becomes the grassed over one or whatever. So in fact, your curb cut is for 3.
Yeah, I don't know which would be the better for the grass over, because the walking on the grass street is not really that great. So it might be better that that would be 3.
Well, I'm sorry, it could be
Or
paved.
even 2.
You're thinking of asphalt and not pavers.
At this point, I haven't had a conversation with a client about what this is, but if this board felt, inclined that this would be better if it was pavers, then that would be part of a resolution that would, a grant for the waivers. I mean, that makes perfect sense.
I mean, my sense is that the owners probably want 2 spaces to themselves. And so now they're gonna, let's suppose they rent out this place, and that person would presumably want at least 1 space, and not be, we wanna make sure they're not parking on the curb, out on the street. That would be my sense, and I can believe that they would likely have 1 car because they're commuting and so forth, so.
It's hard to know. I mean, that scenario's totally possible. At my house, I have 3 parking spaces. It would have been convenient when my son had his car, then I used the 3rd space for his car, but I have a tenant, on the apartment, and I provided that for her.
Right.
So, my son had to get up early and jockey the car, so.
Yeah, so, I mean, my sense is that your option on the right with these 2 super deep spaces is, the reality, this is not a family, that they're gonna be backing cars in and out, and the owner would be unlikely to take that inconvenience of shuffling, their cars. I do this all the time, it's a hassle, to be jockeying cars, as they say. So I'm just wondering if there's a scenario that's more blended where you have 3 spaces and there's an option for actually technically 5 spaces.
Yeah, I don't see any reason that making lot spaces 2 and 3 deeper on option 2. Are these actually labeled as option 2?
No.
It's the 3-car option. I don't see any reason that that would not be viable to do. So if that was the pleasure of the board, that's what we would do.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So you're actually
Yeah.
granting a waiver of 1 space, but you're making accommodation where in fact there's 2 bonus potential spaces if,
At that point, you could actually fit 5 cars.
yeah.
And I don't know if I see like a huge benefit to the one with the 2 spaces, because you have the path right next to it anyway, which would kind of essentially make an impervious
Yeah.
thing right there anyway. So it's like you're not gaining a lot of yard, you're just losing a space.
Right, and part of my client's interest in this is the fact that it exists. So he has a walkway that goes to his front door, which is nice, but that is, I don't think it's safe to say that the homeowner's gonna get everything that's the best and give the leftovers to the tenant. But this would be used by the tenant going to the front door, but if, the reality is walking through the parking area is, you're not, later tonight, it would be viable to get through after the rains.
The cars will be parked out in the circle anyway, so it doesn't really matter, to be honest.
Very possible,
Plenty of room to walk.
yeah.
I mean, the only difference between these 2, for the 2 right spaces, is whether you put a curb stop or you put, well, for argument's sake, we'll call it the grass block, that extra depth of 10 feet, right? So in fact, it could look like your option B, whatever that is, but have the potential
Right,
deep parking as needed.
sure. I mean, using
Yeah.
that grass creek here.
Right. That's all, that's really the only difference.
Where would you use it, Patty?
In other words, I think what Javier is saying is if you use that here,
Mm-hmm.
you could kind of, maybe you let your grass grow, you know, and you cut it when it gets 4 inches high or something, so it looks like, you know, and you plant a grass that looks nice when it's that way. So this looks like it's landscape, but if you had that need to get some cars off the street, you could pull these 2 cars in deeper on top of that, and 2 cars behind.
So for the purposes of this approval, though, how many spaces, on-site spaces, are we saying he's created?
Well, three.
Three.
In that scenario, because that's all you
So
can officially say.
we're forgiving him one,
We're forgiving him one.
waiving one.
And he's
For
giving
the
us
sake,
2 half
presumably,
spaces.
our argument is for the sake of the aesthetics of the neighborhood.
Yeah.
Because I'm not about providing parking, as you know. I wouldn't require any if it was up to me.
Or the
But-
bicycle.
But I'm just thinking about like, when other people on that circle
Yeah, they have.
come to us, we need to have a
Rationale.
rationale for why this was okay here.
I think it's all been, this may be the last house standing, actually, that
Steve, you know, every time you and I think that,
somebody comes in. Well, the house next door might be in too.
There's actually a vacant lot on this street.
Wow.
2 houses over, not next to this house, but one more over, there is a vacant lot.
Is that the next presentation?
Yeah,
Okay.
you can fit 20 units on that, right?
In a suburban building.
Yes.
Dwight, do you have any thoughts on this direction that we're taking?
Well, I'm all for landscaping. When you look at these buildings in the front yard, so that's why we put the suggestion, where I think several of us contributed to the idea of the 2 spaces and then possibly 2 behind them. But I see Javier's idea for solving the parking and it has some merit to it too, because I guess it would facilitate more people using the parking and not putting their car in the street so they didn't have to jockey back and forth out. Yeah, in general, I'm not a big fan of these conversions from 1 to 2 family where you wind up paving so much of the front yard so that there isn't proper
Right.
landscaping and stuff. And so
Right.
we're knocking out a garage, a driveway, we're taking an existing condition which sort of functions like a typical single-family house with the spaces for parking, and we're now converting it to 2-family, and we're kind of making a congested site as a result. So in general, I'm not happy with those, but I know that the board has expressed a desire in other instances to encourage more opportunities for people to have places to live. So that's the balance that has to be done.
Yeah, and if this was a different neighborhood, I might feel differently, but that ship has sailed in this neighborhood. This is 2-family plus territory with many, many cars, so.
Yeah, I think it's going in a good direction. I think I don't think it's a neighborhood that's getting worse. I think it's gonna be getting better. And I wouldn't be surprised, that's why I think it's too early to tell that it's done. I think we're gonna see is some of those smaller houses become, somebody buys it and wants to do something else with it. Maybe we're actually seeing, 5-family on Livingston is now becoming a single family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's unusual,
My house was a rooming house, then 3 residential units, and now it's 1 with an accessory apartment.
And how many years ago was that?
Well, I bought it in 78.
Is that legal?
Yes, it is, counselor. Yes, it is. Listen, I mean, you guys got, you have to left. You should stay with it. Still have scars.
Yeah, we're not prepared for a resolution tonight because we needed to know the plan that you'd like.
Right, but
We can prepare for the next meeting. You can see if there's anyone has any comments from the public tonight. I don't know if they do. Then close the public hearing and we can prepare the resolution with the correct plan as long as that's submitted already. So Dwight can reference it in the first draft.
And I think that sounds great. Just so I'm clear on it, papers, in this area, and then the grass street pavement back here. So this whole front wouldn't be asphalt, it would be, concrete block pavers and something that looks a little bit nicer and
Yeah.
the transitions to the grass street.
Put those on the plan, so.
And no striping.
That's why I'm asking.
And the landscape.
Right.
No striping.
But no, actually, what works very well with the concrete pavers is we could do a very subtle pattern that kind of lets you know where your space is, so you don't have something to take it. So that'll work.
Yes, this is a public hearing. Is there anyone in the public that wishes to be heard on this application? That being the case, I would move that we close the public hearing. Is there a second? All in favor? Thank you. So, Mr. Applicant, are you clear as to where we're going here?
I believe so. I hope so.
Good.
So I will make those modifications to the drawings, submit those, so you have them at the next meeting, and then you guys can act.
No. Public hearing closed. And consider for approval, assuming the plans are in.
Okay,
The next
thank you. Next item number 2 on the agenda is 228 Judson Avenue. Public hearing for site plan review for proposed one-story sunroom addition to the rear of the house.
Keep it long enough for me to get it for a couple of days. Maybe that in 20 minutes.
How long do you need for that? Good evening. We had a long presentation at our last meeting on this application, and let me first ask the board if there's anything further that we need to hear on this from the applicant. Nope. Okay.
I think a recap just for the watching audience would be good.
Okay, maybe, yeah, give them a 60-second what's happening here.
Janet Rosette, 228 Judson Avenue. We are just proposing, that's the house currently, and we are proposing a small one-story addition on the rear. That's to the top of the street. And small covered patio to go with it on that, and it's all in the right, and, from the front of the house, you can see a difference. And that's, on the right is the view from the back.
Good, thank you. This is a public hearing, and it was appropriately noticed. Any questions, comments? No. Good. That being the case, I have a resolution I would propose.
You have to close the
Yeah.
public.
All right, thank you. Move to close the public hearing. Second? All in favor? Thank you.
We want, nobody's here to speak on this.
Huh?
I assume nobody's here to speak on it?
No,
Okay.
I can tell no one's here to speak. Village of Dobbs Ferry Planning Board Resolution granting site plan approval for the construction of an addition to a single-family house, 228 Judson Avenue, whereas Robert Lane and Janet Rosoff, owners, have applied for site plan approval to construct a covered front porch and sunroom addition to their single-family house at 228 Judson Avenue and denoted on tax assessment maps as Section 9, Block 561, Lot 32, and whereas the following plans and documents were submitted as part of the application and lists the things that we've had a chance to review, whereas the site plan and first floor plan, together with a series of proposed elevations and area photos, have been submitted as part of the application, whereas a duly noticed public hearing was held on March 1, 2018, and all comments received taken into account, and whereas the planning board is familiar with the site and surrounding area and the proposed improvement plans and the use of the property, and take notes of the limited scope of the proposed construction project, and whereas the construction of an addition in a single-family house is a type 2 action under the Environmental Quality Review Act and is therefore exempt from further environmental review. Now therefore be it resolved that the planning board of the Village of Dobbs Ferry herein grants site plan approval for the subject application conditioned on the following. One, all applicable provisions of the village, county, and state regulations shall be met. Two, prior to the issuance of a building permit, all required site plan and engineering review fees shall be paid. Three, a site landscape plan shall be prepared to the satisfaction of the village's consulting planner. The landscape plan shall include rain gardens for stormwater mitigation as required. The following language shall be added to the plan. Quote, approved subject to all requirements and conditions of a resolution dated March 1, 2018, of the Planning Board of the Village of Dobbs Ferry, New York. Any change, erasure, modification, or revision of this plan, absent reapproval from the Planning Board, shall void this approval. Be it therefore further resolved that this resolution shall have an effective date of March 1, 2018. I would make the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Thank you. Thank you.
You didn't give Rob enough time.
Item 3 on our agenda. Actually, I think we'll move item 3 to the end. If that's okay with the applicant. And we will go to item 4, 130 Palisade Street, pre-submission conference for site plan review for proposed renovation of an existing one-family house and building a small 3-story addition on the east side, which is in the back of the house.
Your Honor, the owner is coming, she's not here yet, so we want to skip to the next one and give them a nice one.
Okay. Item number 5 on our agenda, 91 Beachdale Road, pre-submission conference for site plan review to remove existing driveway and turnaround. New driveway will be relocated on an old driveway bed.
I don't have some big screens.
That's on the screen.
Got the big one. So, you remember this, right? You look at this. This is the new house, two buildings.
You might want to speak into it.
We used to go across this.
Are you going to go over there? Okay, so, no, that's fine.
Owns this lot here.
You'll come back,
He just-
okay.
Is that different, an old driveway bed?
No.
Is there.
You notice Mr. Hales.
And then this guy's put up, he'll have his own driveway.
That's your initial. The new house that's going.
Are you allowed to vote on this?
I voted on this one.
Yeah, I guess. Yes.
Good evening, Paul Petretti, civil engineer, and Axel there, representing Mark Fader and Michelle Caruso. And the application is kind of a simple application, it's really to dress up the property. And this is an existing condition survey, so we have 91 Beachdale, there's 4 driveways that are accessed, that come off of Beachdale, climbs up, comes to the back. One goes to the left, one goes to the right, and then there's the 2 that here. I think that you guys are familiar with this. I think you approved the new house being constructed there. So the applicants would like to remove this circular driveway because it's actually very entertaining at times, okay? People park in it and then, they gotta jump in and out of the house. And so, eliminate this. There is an old traveled way, historically, been there all the time. Okay, you can see it, surveyed, we located it. So the intent is to remove the existing driveway. This is the new driveway, okay, for the house that's being constructed now. And then you can see in the future that if people would use this driveway, they would be encouraged to use the new turnaround, and I don't think that would work out too well. So the intent, okay, which you have in your there, okay, is to remove that, use, which is colored in orange, okay, the old traveled way, make a driveway, okay, and then improve the front yard by putting a garden in the front yard. There'll be a retaining wall that comes around and wraps like this, okay? It'll have 0 height here, it'll go to about 3.5, 4 feet there, new parking, and that's basically the application. So the driveway will be macadam, okay? It's not gonna have curves. The road will be crowned, so the water runs off to the right and left. What we call disconnected hydrology, kind of works kind of nice. So there's no reason to put any catch basins in, all this kind of infrastructure. They do have underneath the driveway a set of large diameter pipes, okay, that are gonna be used to catch the storm water that's generated by the pavement. That's it.
Okay, and are you gonna be required to do any blasting, chipping, or otherwise rock removal?
No. Zero.
No.
Because this is, see this, the gray spots?
Mhm.
That's your lead rock.
Those are
okay?
rocks.
So somebody wisely before, in
Yeah.
ancient times, negotiated their way through the,
Indian path.
right, okay? The outcrops, and I don't think there's any reason not to follow that.
The circle that's there now is macadam, that you just dig all that up and put in the garden.
And what would happen with the section of driveway that is abandoned, that's not on your property?
Well, we can only abandon the portion that's on ours, okay? The other portion, I don't know what you guys did with the approval for that.
Well, he would use it
Well,
to get into his house, right?
They still had access, they still had to give easement to the, your property that you, so now that would be reverted back to 89 Beechdale, and they could do with it as they see fit.
But it seems like the removal would be part of this application, no?
Well, I think they would take it upon themselves to break it up, because they're gonna have, their driveway's gonna continue into their garage. So there'll be a little bit left that they don't need, and it would be to their benefit to remove it. So,
It's called their problem.
Yeah.
Yes?
It's on their property.
Unfortunately, I haven't seen I never saw the approval for the other project. So you're talking about this area right here?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay.
I think they were using that and then turning in, right? From the, huh?
Part of it,
Yeah. I mean,
part
they
of it, but
weren't
there's gonna be an
obviously-
orphan section.
Obviously, there'll be like now at the end, there'll be this little orphan bit that they'll get rid of, presumably.
Imagine the person
Well,
that takes.
where they have big equipment there, I can see it from my house, you know, the top of the cranes, of the top of the big equipment, so
Yeah.
I'm sure it's easy for them to dig it up, but I don't know what time, what your schedule's like, when do you anticipate doing
I don't know
these?
if we can legally do that.
Yeah, I don't think it's for them to do that.
No.
No, what I'm saying is that right now they have heavy equipment, and they're moving dirt.
Right, so do they know, do the neighbors know about, about this plan?
You're gonna have to have a public hearing.
you had to.
Oh, okay.
You will have a public hearing.
Because as he's
Yeah.
saying, it makes
This is
sense,
just-
while they're doing this, if now they know they're gonna have to get rid of a piece of the driveway while the equipment's there, it makes
But they
sense.
can't get rid of it until you have built this new access, right? So, which will come after their equipment is all gone, so there will be,
Well, we don't know that.
right?
Maybe you should talk to 89 Beechdale Builder before you come back for the public hearing and see what they
I don't know
have to
what their
say.
intent is.
Yeah, Zappy, you know them?
I know that
I
the two
can put you
neighbors
in
have spoken
contact.
to each other. It's not like, they're
Right.
at odds with each other.
Yeah.
So when I see their plan, you probably have the
Yes.
Yeah.
89 on the file, I can take a look at that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Somehow, some way come up
Yeah.
with, what's gonna happen by the time we have the public
Yeah,
hearing.
okay. Any other comments? I'd like to move that we call for a public hearing at our next meeting. Second? All in favor? Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Petty. All right, we will go back to item number 4 on the agenda, 130 Palisades Street, pre-submission conference for site plan review for proposed renovation of existing one-family house and building a small three-story addition on the east side, which is in the back of the house. That's too much information.
Yeah, it's an
Patty Site Center, Document Design, Community Development. We are here representing the Noise. Simone Noise is here in the audience. And she will actually be making the more aesthetic component of this presentation. She did a very good job. Much better than I would have done as the architecture review board. So I think, that would be going with it. This site is, you all know, Palisades, it's a very nice wide lot, it's a neat lot, and it's got one of the smallest houses on the street on it. A lot of these other houses look small when you see them from the front, but you realize they're kind of like that New England where they just kept building back and adding more and more. So this is a very small house, about 1,400 square feet right now, which includes a couple of bump outs on the back. And they started renovating it a year and a half ago, and got to the point where they were realizing that what their needs were would not fit inside the house. They are going to complete gut rehab of the whole house, doing a really good job. So they came to us to talk about ways of making it work, so that they could have the kitchen they want, and a bathroom for the kids. And the concern we had was, if we go, here's the house, here's Palisade Street, there's some very nice trees in the backyard. It is a house that's put up in front, and it seemed to us that the backyard, trying to keep that intact is a real benefit. So instead of, say, making a T-shaped addition where we could go out deeper into the property, and take down a bunch of fairly nice trees, what we did is we made it as tight as we could to the back of the existing house. And got it to kind of just fit in tight. This is a house, now we're looking at Main Street, so you see the house here. It, not only is it small in footprint, it's also relatively small in mass. When you realize some of these houses are quite large, and these buildings are quite large from the back, and of course Main Street is pretty dynamic. This is standing on the street looking south. This is the subject house. Here is just houses on either side. This is 2 houses up. This is the house next door. I'll go back to it in a minute, but a lot of the buildings on this street are very tight for side yards. Here's the subject house, and then a frontal on it. And then this is the house next door. Obviously, you can see pretty easily that this house, relative to the size of those, you know, they're much bigger houses than that. These houses perhaps are kind of closer to the scale of it. This is looking southwest across the street, and this is looking northwest across the street. The other side of the house, the other side of the street, slightly smaller buildings, but still larger than our client. This is standing at the south end of the street, looking up. We're standing right just past the corner, and here's the subject house. And this is just that shot again for kind of orientation with what you've got in the backs of all these buildings. And one of the reasons I wanted to show this is you realize there's a lot of interesting stuff going on in Dobbs. You know, a lot of these buildings have a lot of activity with massing and things popping up, and it was something that made us feel we had some latitude and we could perhaps be a little bit more playful with how we approach this, because one of the things that the client, there are two components besides the yard here that really start to drive things. One is Simone's husband is an artist, and it would really be great to have a studio space, light-filled, and this is just 1 block off from the river, and wouldn't it be cool if you could actually see the river from the house? So those became ideas that we wanted to push. Here's the paving we're going to use over at 35. This is looking in at the garage. Here's the back of the house. These structures are what make it get to 1,400 square feet. Here's the house next door, which goes past further. Here's kind of looking at the gap between those. Here's looking right down. You know, this is the house, and you're looking past, so you see that the width of this is about the same width as the porch and the addition, and that's the limit that we're working with that. Wow. So what we're looking to do is to have a 10-foot bump on the back of the house, which when it goes up to the 3rd floor, kicks out 2 feet in both directions. So you get 14 feet for the studio, so it's a usable space, but it's very tight on the 1st and 2nd floor, as it can be. You know, if you made the back of the house 1 solid wall, we would get 2 more feet on the 2 floors. Well, make a bigger staircase. It just isn't space that's necessary. So we try to be fairly prudent with this. Here, standing in the backyard, looking at the house, this is the garage. These are the trees that actually are in very good shape and really attractive. This is the tree that's dead that they actually got the permit to take it down, it'd be good too. So the idea of keeping the backyard, this is the house to the left, and this is the house to the right. Here is the survey of the property. This is the house, shows the garage, little shed in the back, property line back to Main Street. And then just our drawings. This shows how we're fitting this in. Now, the setback requirements in the MDR2 zone are that we would have 10 feet on either side. We could have gone out deeper in this, threatening these two trees and maybe casting more shadows on the neighbor's yard. What we did is we said we'd like to pack this in tight and make it be the length of the house. We went to the zoning board and they granted a variance for that. So that's already been done. We've also already been to the architectural review board. We were there Monday night and they had a lot of interesting suggestions which we are investigating and will be submitting some modifications for their next meeting. It was a very interesting conversation. It wasn't a negative, but they really engaged with us. They had a lot of interest in how this was happening and how it's evolving and why certain things. Really quick, just from a pragmatic sense of what it is, as I described, on the first floor, that addition is really the staircase, a powder room, a little entrance, family entrance with closets, and then enough room to have a decent sized kitchen and a pantry. With taking the stairs out of the front room, you're getting the space that it feels like it's a decent sized living room. Upstairs, you've got 2 hall bedrooms, the master bedroom with a nice bath, not a huge, but a nice one, with a closet, a little laundry area, a hall bath for the kids, and a staircase, and then this becomes the studio. The stairs coming up, a good working space, and as I said, playful and fun, the idea of having a porch on the 3rd floor level that you can walk out onto. Here's the ridge of the house. You're standing there, you're looking over the ridge, and you don't get phenomenal views of the river, but you can stand and look at the river, which is fun to do. This is the front of the house. This is the neighbor to the north side. We are right now playing with eliminating or reducing these windows. Maybe making this a little bit of a more plainer side to the neighbor, kind of in response to some of the concerns the neighbor expressed. We're also playing with different things with fenestration along here, but that's all, that's really ARB. The only other thing I think it's kind of good to know what the reasoning for that variance that we got with the setbacks is that we had done an analysis of Palisade Street several years ago, and we determined that the average setback, side yard setback is about 5 feet on that street, and the only reason that it's that big is you've got a couple of parcels with very large. If you eliminated these two and these two, what you find is you're probably around 2 to 3 feet, which is, I think, something that would be good for this. I think we talked about it several years ago that it would really be good at some point to look at the MDR2 and figure out what those number standards are. But it's not an issue here because we have the variance. Here's the subject property, and we have 3.4 feet between these two buildings. We have 17.2 windows, and that's all been resolved.
Go back to that for a sec. And if I understand, the after footprint would be the same width as the existing house and come out to about the back of the one to the right?
Right. It's almost where this line is only pointing to that, but it's just about exactly right. The addition won't line up with the full massing of it, but there's a porch on the back of this house, and the porch and the addition line up. And what, the neighbor expressed concerns about shadows hitting his yard. Apparently has a very nice vegetable garden. So the idea was, he was concerned with that. And I think his feeling was that this was going to block his sunlight coming this way. If we built an addition coming out here, we actually would be casting a lot more shadow on his property. So I think we've been very prudent in the way we've approached this. That just shows those kinds of narrow lot lines. And this just, the idea of the variance and why it was granted. And that's pretty much my part of it, but Simone.
Hi, you stole my thunder.
I did.
My 2018 with the intention to renovate the small home, have a family in Dobbs Ferry. We just had a baby end of last year, little Nola, so with, starting to look at kids' rooms upstairs, that was originally just a master bedroom and then an awkward open space. We thought we could make it at least 2 bedrooms for kids. One of the bedrooms ended up being like 8 by 9, or just very tiny. The kitchen ended up not fitting into the space that's currently there in the house. So very quickly we realized that we needed extra feet in the back. And as Patty already showed in the floor plan, our intention is to use the house that we bought really to live in and be in, and then using the extension to have all the services, like the bathroom and the downstairs and upstairs as well. And then, again, the 3rd floor is for my husband to have a real studio, because we couldn't quite figure out where to squeeze that in. And I think to add to why we think it's nice to have it real wide is also the simplicity of it. Instead of having to almost walk into a long area and leaving the space, it feels, the floor plan right now feels just, nice and simple. You can be in the bedroom and walk into the bathroom. Downstairs you have your living room and you can walk out to both sides, and it just felt right. I mean, we've been, I think, end of last year, November, December, we approached Patty, so this has been a very long thought process to land us here. And yeah, we're really excited about this, so I hope you can, continue the approvals.
Good, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's always interesting to me when somebody, it's like, beginning of the second, I think if there's a moment, I should drive you around and show you, it's been a bit longer than that. So any questions you guys have? And one of the questions, I'd be remiss if I didn't suggest it. I don't know what your thinking is, but I don't know if there's much to do site plan here. So I don't know if this is one that you waive this, or do you go through the rest of the process and have the public hearing? Your call.
I think, and the board can talk about it, we can talk about it, but I think it would be helpful to have a public hearing to make sure that the neighbors are fully aware of what's happening, and, they don't get to vote, but at least we get to hear what their thoughts are, so.
Well, I wouldn't want to deprive you of that.
No, I wouldn't want to deprive them of that, but I don't know how the others feel about that.
I think it's a good idea.
Sure.
Yeah. Any other questions at this point? I think it's been made, by both of you, made very clear what it is you're doing, and it's interesting and helpful that the HRB is fully involved at this point, so that's helpful, and you've gotten your variance. So I would move that we call for a public hearing at our next meeting. Is there a second? All in favor?
Any concerns that you want us to take a look at, or, we have to require parking?
Is there any plan change to the garage building or the,
I think, the reality is you've got 2 parking spaces without the garage is undersized.
more storage?
Maybe 10 years ago, I would have said it was great for storage and all this. Well, looking at what I'm seeing happening with cars, I'm thinking maybe we're 3 or 4 years away from, that's a really nice garage. The idea is as cars are getting smaller and more compact, it might be useful as a garage.
It's always useful to have space.
Yes.
How do you get to the garage? Is an alley back there or something?
Actually.
There's a little side drive,
side drive.
little narrow.
Yeah.
You just drive
It
through
had the
it?
pavers on it, it was. that
Oh, right,
shelf.
right, okay. That was another house though.
There you
Oh,
go.
that's it,
Look at
okay.
that.
Yeah.
Oh, cool,
So
okay.
you've got a nice long approach to the garage, you've got the, really, you could put a car in.
That's a great property, it really is.
Yeah, that's fun.
Well,
Look at that driveway.
Great property.
Smart car.
smart car.
Oh, yeah.
There are cars I'm seeing on the road these days, you can put Spirit Ford in the garage.
So was that portion of the driveway from the back of the house, from the retaining wall to the garage, just newly paved?
Not in my time frame. I don't know if that was, did you guys do that, or was that kind of like that?
The pavers,
Yeah.
yeah, that was done.
Before you moved?
before you
Or
bought
you
it?
did that? You put the pavers in, or that had already was
No,
there?
these were put in,
By you?
yes.
Yeah.
You want to set the public hearing for the next meeting, Chair?
We did?
Yes.
Oh, you did? You did the motion?
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, Darius, do you have any questions?
No.
No, it's a good, cool.
So, goodbye.
That was a hint.
As a general,
He has something else to present.
as a general comment, it was kind of neat to see the idea of going up instead of back. I didn't know if you felt the way I did, but I
Yeah.
thought that was pretty nifty.
Yeah, it is nice.
Retaining the backyard and,
Yeah, it's nice.
yeah.
And I will take nifty. I think that's the nicest thing anybody said.
No, that's a nice design.
If it's okay with you, I'd like to call the next one with Paul.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I didn't know Paul had another one.
No, he was waiting, he was just wanted to hear you talk, I think.
Paul always likes to give,
Item number 6 on our agenda, Crescent Park at Children's Village pre-submission conference for site plan review for proposed maintenance, a one-story maintenance building.
They're buying it from, or it's the country club.
Actually, quite large maintenance building.
Okay,
Okay, then the Freddie Civil Engineer Land Surveyor representing Children's Village, okay? Representative of the office is here, Dennis Moss, his office. So, pretty simple, okay? I think I gave you an overview map to show you where the building's gonna go. It's 79 by 34, one story, okay? It's gonna look like that. Here's the footprint, and that's it.
Is that prefabricated metal?
Prefabricated. And there's the location, you can see this is the entrance to the campus,
Put it over
okay?
there so the camera can
You
see
see
it.
the two large buildings, school buildings, parking area.
Yeah.
This area is used for maintenance,
Hey,
okay?
Paul? you might want to show so the camera can pick it up. Just,
Yes, the back there.
How do I do that?
Stand at the dais. Stand at the dais.
Well, I just
Yeah,
have a
and now
question.
hold it up.
Now,
If I might just ask
There
a
you go.
question.
yeah.
This is the ER zone. Does this have to go to the Board of Trustees? I hope not.
Does.
It does. Just, okay.
Should it go there first?
Should.
I don't know.
We can have it at the next meeting. I mean, you're here,
Yeah, that's what we said.
all right, so another, okay?
but yes.
You have to go to the HRB, right?
Yes.
Okay? Can we go concurrently?
Yes.
we go? Yes, good. So,
What is the roof made of?
it's a metal.
Metal. And there's no power?
It's gonna be a basic.
So there is electric line.
Electric, no phone.
No plumbing.
Exterior lighting?
What's the intended use, this for landscape equipment, or what's the intention here?
Hide stuff. Whatever they want to hide.
So I think
It's not meant to be-
if you could put the, hold that up over at that end, then the camera can pick it up.
It's fine.
Yeah, so the camera can see it.
They have landscape equipment back there, and they have sort of a debris piles and stuff. Is that what happens back there in Hastings Trail, back in the woods? Is that, it's for landscape management and machinery, or?
They didn't mention it. I just did the survey of this area,
Mhm.
so if he goes back there, there's a road that.
Yeah, Hastings Trail,
There's
that's
an
actually a
abandoned
road.
road that actually goes
Yeah,
down to
okay,
the bottom of
and,
Judson.
There is another road.
Uh-huh. Oh, yeah.
And then this kind of breaks apart, but it actually goes
Yeah.
all the way to the
Right.
bottom of Judson.
Right, yeah. I've seen caves
one.
This is,
There's another building.
yeah, this is Rivertown Square. Here we go.
Okay. There are no sight lines from any of the houses on Judson to this location, are there? Okay.
I live down there,
Yeah.
you can't see it.
No, I walked there a lot, that was pretty
Yeah,
sharp.
no.
Because there was a hiring coyote down there today.
Wow. The Coyote, I mean, there's one that they've been flagging all day long on TV.
Yeah, he went down to Yonkers.
No, it attacked a dog, and actually the Hastings schools recommended they do not let your kids walk
I
through
think
the
they
park.
got it.
Wow.
They got it?
Wow.
Good.
So, does it have to go to the Board of Trustees, or, I mean, do we, public hearing, or what?
Yeah,
I think what you do is we'll let the board know to have it on the meeting in March. You can set the public hearing for April. If they don't refer it back, then we won't have the public hearing. If they do, you can have the public hearing. Does that seem okay, Donna?
Yeah, we have a meeting on the 13th, so.
13th and the 27th, so we'll be before. So I would schedule the public hearing for April 1st, and we'll let you know. We'll need you to come to the board for a quick,
Okay, April 1st is the village board meeting?
No.
March 13th or March 27th will be the village board meeting. We'll let you know.
And I'll come, we're not going.
do we have plans by the Wednesday before the 13th?
But do we do anything then? Do we take any action?
Well, not now.
We don't refer it to, they have to
No,
refer
we have
it
to refer it.
If they-
Here.
The board has to
Yeah,
refer it to
so-
you.
Do they have to refer it to us, or they don't?
It's in
How
the
many
I
cents?
zone, yes, they do.
12.
Okay, so again.
It's one of the 5 zones.
Oh, we'll let you know.
Okay,
It's,
yeah.
it's a ARE question, but, ARB, is there any color proposed? I mean, is the idea to screen this thing as much as possible, or?
He's a full white color, he's a slab on grade, so we had a start with an engineer, that, put together this out here and the foundation, so they can
She needs a microphone.
score some equipment there. There's a slab on grade.
Golf, you look at spray paint.
In there if they want.
Golf carts.
And,
And it comes off white,
exactly what they're gonna do in there, but it's suitable for.
and it comes in white, that's the color.
He's an off-white, yes.
Yeah.
What I'm showing here is in
And it stays all metal on the inside, no combustible surfaces?
And one exit, presumably, right?
There's no insulation, no heat.
Not much of a building.
Fine.
Okay.
So, architectural review board. Can we go to the architectural review? board?
Yes, you go concurrent, all of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
I'll be interested to hear what they have to say. If they have anything to say. Are they allowed to waive? I think if I was on that board, I'd say, you know,
They're gonna ask you
It's
about the
okay.
fenestration.
One time they got a treehouse application.
Tree.
That was interesting. The owner insisted on.
Should have come
going.
here.
Set a public hearing.
Okay, so we've set a public hearing.
If it's referred. A conditional subject hearing.
Well,
public hearing
subject to
the BOT
getting a referral from the, yeah, but,
But do all of those.
Yes.
okay. Goodbye. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's the process.
Now he's left again. We have one more agenda item. But we're missing the applicant,
You've been waiting all this time.
you scared them away, Art.
apparently.
Why don't you speak now?
Why don't you take the dais and introduce yourself?
Oh, here he is.
There he is.
Okay, this is our last item on the agenda this evening is 26 Allen Street, a continuation of pre-submission conference for site plan review for proposed construction of a single-family house.
So good evening, Dennis Sexton from Godwin Design and Community Development. This is, we've been obviously dealing with it for a while now. the subdivision process that's been concluded. So we're now turning to the site plan. I think we have hit most of the issues that have come up. I don't think I need to explain any of this stuff. There was a little bit of confusion. We got the Han memo, and it seemed like, maybe because it was so long ago that we submitted some stuff, it may not, it wasn't like clear that that had been submitted. Part of that was the steep slopes and the drainage report. So I brought the drainage report that was submitted in October, so that can get reviewed. The house at this point, I think we felt we were done with it. We took it to the architectural review board, they didn't have any real comments on it. They, the main thing for them was that we were compliant with sky exposure plan, which we are. The comment that came up, I think it's okay that we're not this way. So George and I were talking about it, he was concerned that we've got a section of the driveway that is maybe even slightly over 15%. We've had it from the beginning, and it was something we talked about a long time ago. It's a short section, driving up to this house, you're on roads that are steeper than that, but it's still, you try to avoid those kinds of conditions if you can. So what George did is he said, well, is it really something you couldn't figure out how to make work? Because, you know, maybe you need to show us that you can, which of course led us back to taking a better investigation of it. And we found that I think we can. I think we can hit 12%, which I think is better than 15%. What it does is it raises the house up 1.9 foot. But raising up 1.9 foot, we're still fully compliant with everything. We're still compliant with the sky exposure plan. So I think, you know, the way I've done this is in this presentation, we have what we submitted to you, and we have the revised, and the difference in the revised is the driveway. You'd have to really study it much more than I think you'd want to see the differences, but it's a matter of where the line is going. I'm sure George will take a very careful look at it. This is the house as we had it. That's the house raised up to 1.9 foot. If you look at the main area that is affected is right here, where this was coming down steeper and kind of going all the way to the second door. Now this is earlier and it's flatter grade, but while we're hitting into the soffit of the roof, that is something that the architectural review board has determined is acceptable for a sky exposure plan. So I think we're in good shape with all those things. You've already seen this in terms of the changes we made for when we went to the architectural review board maybe half a year ago. We originally had 4 bedrooms on the second floor, and the massing here kind of had a 3-story wall on the back, which is 1 story above grade. So that's been changed. It's 3 bedrooms on the second floor. We moved 1 bedroom to the first floor and got the roof to kind of step down. So the massing of the building follows the topography, stepping down with it. We're good with our side yards. One thing that we did, which we talked about a while back, is we've pushed the house as close to the neighbor here as we could to maximize the separation to the neighbor here. This neighbor's house is very close to his property line, and what we want to do is maximize that, put the driveway on that side so there's more space here. This is the house, this is the property owner who sold the 25 feet to be able to create this, so that seems like it's more fair. You know, so I think that works out. I don't think we need to go through floor plans. This is just erosion control. There were comments that we've adjusted. We originally had a soil pile here, which is where we're putting the Cultec units, and that compacted, so we've complied with removing that, moving it over. We still need, I'd say right now, on the list of comments from Han Engineering, almost everything but except maybe 2 or 3 pertains to the storm drainage connections and the details with the way that's handled. So we'll go back, if we're moving the right direction with the board, we'll go back and we'll ask them to make the modifications to this so that it addresses the Han memorandum. Some of the things are, it's good to get them fixed, but they are relatively simple. For example, their typical detail shows 3 Cultecs. This is actually a break line. which kind of means it's more of an array of cul-de-sacs. We're showing 2. So I think the request by Han was that we just show a detail that matches what we're planning to install instead of a generic. So that can be done easily.
This parking you're showing is to be ignored at this point. What you're showing on that last slide on
This is
Ashford
the
Avenue.
area. This is a neighboring property, has nothing to do with this.
Yes, let's remove that from this site plan, and also the other page, the details page in the beginning, to remove the chart for 11 Pearl. That was appropriate for site plan,
Okay.
for subdivision, but not for site plan, so let's just take off everything that doesn't pertain to this property.
Good idea.
But there is still this easement that goes across
Yeah.
towards Ashford Avenue.
Yeah, that has to stay.
What is that for?
Drainage and sewer.
Sewer,
Yeah.
not just Ashford Avenue.
We're removing parking from this application.
No, we're not removing parking. That's totally right, that what we're showing here, what the engineer has done, is he's working on what happened to be 2 neighboring properties. So maybe to save time and energy, he drew what was for this one, what was for this one. Originally, he had the storm drainage for this one on this drawing. So we had him remove that. But at this point, to get this done, I don't see any reason he can't just completely eliminate that.
Yeah.
And this parking has nothing to do with this property.
And the drainage will show on the subdivision plat when it's finalized.
It does.
But the easement should stay on this.
Right.
Everything else removes.
Yeah, we could take all this stuff off, we could just, we could show the outlines of those lots.
Yeah.
Yes, and you
show
can leave the
these
existing
coming
building on the neighboring lot, but anything that doesn't exist should
across. Right.
go.
But that easement implies, I mean, just to be clear, you are putting piping through that easement as part of this application.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it needs to
And
stay.
is, all right.
So I have a question. I understand the driveway at 15 degrees is not desirable, but I also think raising the entire building and increasing the visual massing is also not desirable. So I ask you, is it worse to have 15 degrees on the driveway or to actually increase the massing of the building?
Well, it's a foot, what was the
Foot-
difference?
foot
1.9.
1 foot 9, 2 feet?
1'9".
What is the total height of the building?
33 feet, I think.
35. What's the average height of the buildings in the street?
There are houses that are
10.
much bigger than this, there are houses that are much smaller than this.
How many are much bigger?
How many? Would you like me to give you that data? I can do that.
Well, it's like a 7% increase in the height of the building, right?
I think that the
It's not
neighbor-
nothing.
The neighbor to the right was the one most concerned about
Yeah.
overpowering his house.
Yeah,
Right,
but that's that's an unusually small house.
right. He doesn't, and he's not being really affected. I mean, we're doing, this is the house next door. So that's a very small house, in every dimension. You know, it's small height, small width, small depth. It has
And those-
18% driveway.
Those trees will stay between his
Where's
house?
that 18?
Yes. You know, but that's one of the advantages of moving the house further away from him. We were able to save a bunch of the trees. This is a house that's maybe twice the size of what we're proposing, and does those things that this board and the architectural review board asked us to consider not doing, which is like the 3-story wall that's starting a story above grade when you look at it from Ashford Avenue. But these are houses that are across the street. I mean, if I started counting how many are this size and small, I think what we're gonna find is that most of the houses are bigger than what we're proposing. So I don't know that, I mean, this one tucks down very cute because it actually is on a corner and you can drive around and you can get access into it. But then when you get to this side, I mean, that's really 4 stories. So, I don't know that we're certainly not doing anything that is incongruent to the neighborhood. It's not like it's a neighborhood of one character and we're doing something different. But the architectural review board was also very clear when I showed these same photos and made that same statement. They were basically saying, just because somebody else got to do something that doesn't look terrific isn't a justification for you to do it, so that's why we made the changes that we made, which reduced the massing fairly substantially. If you look at the original plan we had, or design that we had, and where we're at now, we've eliminated like what you would think maybe a third of the mass of the house.
Has the ARB seen the new higher version?
No. We're gonna go back to them in a week and a half, whenever it is.
And what would be the process for, if the decision was to actually leave the house low and have this grade that exceeds the code, how does that happen? That would have to be a variance?
No, that's just a design standard, it's a good practice.
Right.
Yeah, it's not a
You
code
really-
thing.
It's not a code thing.
What happens if you split the baby?
Yeah, but I think this is what, the planning board speaks to this, this is,
Right.
and what George is saying is that 12% is still a fairly steep driveway, so going to 15% is generally undesirable. And so I would assume that the planning board would stick by its guns and say, we want the driveway at 12% grade and no more, unless there's some condition where it can't be met, then you look at it, but it can be met in this case, so.
And the other, Alan, if I thought that this made a real difference of how people perceive it, I would probably have fought against the idea of it, but the difference of how this is gonna look, 1'9" taller, is just not really something, if I wasn't able to toggle between them, I don't know that you could really see a major difference. It's a subtle thing. I mean, part of that is even, I think, part of it's that the houses jump too, so, the idea here is that you're lifting the front porch up a little bit more, but you've still got, right now this is a hole that drops off from the street. So it's kind of, if this was a normal piece of property and flat, this is, this would be the most common, normal thing in the world.
Your previous design was a lot taller, right?
Yeah.
How much taller was it before?
We were at the 35 feet, and we were going back, the massing here, what we did is we had the porch coming off the back of the house to try and break the feeling of the mass, but this wall came up and this roof filled in, so all of that was there. So we've gotten rid of a lot of the mass.
Was it any lower or higher?
Yeah, we had dropped from basically 35 to around 32, or just under 32 feet. Now we're up to like 33, so in a way, I think we have kind of split the baby, because what I would normally say is my max that just if I'm gonna put a driveway in, I'd rather be less than 10%. In this spot, we were trying to keep it down for the reasons of concern with massing, so we went to 15. I actually thought that the village had approved 15, but you were correcting me that the most done is 14.
It does make a difference from the previous design, definitely.
Yeah.
It's safer too. The lower you go, the safer it is. Cars can just keep right on going.
Oh, yeah, it's like slippery.
So maybe we should keep that parking lot.
Yeah, I mean, and you have a good landing space here. So, I mean, that's one of the other things that George was, he wanted to make sure that we were doing right, was when we come up that ramp, we're not, the neighbor's house, the driveway comes right up to the street at that steep pitch. Here, what we do is we're coming up to the property line, and then we're at 2% going out to the street. So the car is able to sit and see the traffic and pull out safely. So I think this is safer. I don't think it makes a difference in massing, and this house is incredibly small. If you look at where the ridge actually is, this house is really not dramatically bigger than that. This house, if it wasn't a whole story down on the ground, would be, if this was the line here was up there, that would be kind of along the same lines. It's because it's around the corner going down the hill.
Right.
So, and the houses across the street are, a story and a half taller than this.
So the HRB has seen this, just not this last bump?
The ARB has seen everything that I'm showing you here and they didn't spend a lot of time on it. Monday night wasn't like, Simone's was an hour and a half. This was, maybe 10 minutes. So I don't think they had, there wasn't anything that they were saying, so that we could reduce the pitch of the driveway. It's not an arbitrary thing, it's in the interest, but as was just posed to you, I mean, that, Alan's question is a fair one. And it wouldn't be the first time that I've seen a planning board say, you know what, a 50-foot section of 15 that has a landing space that's safe on both ends, I'd rather the house was 1 foot 9 inches shorter.
Well,
I haven't come across that. Just, I think by and large, 12% is considered pretty steep.
The roads, the point, the person in my office who had to go out and check all this stuff, he came back and he did say, at what point does the fact that you're driving up streets that are significantly steeper than what you're talking about, the driveway, where does that come in? You go down Allen Street to Southfield, I'm surprised kids don't use that for sledding.
People die, that's
You
why.
die when you hit Southfield, though.
Yeah.
So I don't know if we've ever figured it out, but my guess is that's probably over 20%.
if no one else has anything for tonight, we did call for a public hearing at our last meeting. We will make sure that that's, do we have to recall now? Yeah?
Reopen it.
We should.
Recall, it wasn't properly noticed, so
Well,
we
yeah,
need to.
right, all right.
Yeah. Do you need us to do anything with that, or is it just?
No, Pat just forgot to send out the notice to the
So we
paper,
don't need
we'll
us to
take care of it
renotice
this
the
time,
mail
and,
or anything like that?
no.
Okay.
Got your sign up?
We have one person here, right?
Would you like to speak?
Would you like to talk?
Art, I think you should speak. This is otherwise it doesn't feel like a public hearing if somebody doesn't say
We're
something.
not a public hearing.
Oh, that's-
Yeah, yes, it is.
42 Florence Avenue. I'm just wondering about that steep driveway, and if the residents come home late one night, there was an ice storm, and what's gonna stop them at the end of that
Like tonight?
slide down?
We actually have fencing at the end with the stone wall coming up higher than the grade, so it would hit into that. Wouldn't be nice, but it would not go down the hill and land in Rob's parking lot.
Christmas trees.
That's all, that's all.
Thank you.
Want to call for a public hearing?
Well, we did.
Okay.
I mean, I think, according to Darius, our call last meeting applies
Yeah,
forward.
that's fine.
Let's renew it,
Yeah.
or refresh it.
Hit refresh.
Call for a continuation.
Public hearing April, first Thursday in April.
Right,
I think that's it.
yeah, exactly. Well, if there's nothing further, I would move we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
What? No, no.